Hey there, I'm Rachel Ehring, and you're listening to the Top Music Piano Podcast. Get inspired as we discuss creative resources, trends in piano pedagogy, ways to grow your income and streamline your studio, and new ways to engage your students each week. If you are a teacher who wants to go beyond the method books to create an innovative studio that fosters lifelong music makers, you've come to the right place. Hello, piano teachers. I am so glad that you're here today, and I know you're going to enjoy this episode. Sometimes as piano teachers, we get stuck in our bubble of doing what we've always done, teaching the way we've always taught, and honestly, it is easier to live that way. But what if there were great rewards from stepping outside of what's familiar and comfortable? My guest today, Florence Phillips, stepped way outside of her comfort zone, and she graciously agreed to share her story with me. Before we get into it, here's a little bit about Florence. Florence Phillips is a pianist and educator based in Chester County, Pennsylvania. She founded her private studio in 2020 and works with a diverse range of students, from young beginners to advanced adults, providing a welcoming, creative, and supportive environment for musical growth. A native of Westchester, Florence is passionate about enriching her community through music. She holds both a master's and bachelor's degree in piano pedagogy, the former from Westchester University, where she currently serves as an adjunct professor in the Wells School of Music. In addition to her university work, she teaches group piano classes at SCI Phoenix and remains active as a church musician. Outside of her musical pursuits, Florence enjoys spending time with her large extended family, exploring her hometown, and traveling with her daughter. Here is my interview with Florence. Hi, Florence. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to talk to you today. Before we get started on our topic, could you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My name is Florence Phillips. I own a multi-teacher studio, and I began my studio in 2020. I had graduated with my bachelor's in piano pedagogy in 2012, taught at a few studios in the area. I lived in different places, never really had an established studio. And then I came back for my master's at Westchester University here in Pennsylvania, 2018 to 2020. Graduated in the middle of the pandemic with my master's, and then just started off on my own at that point, and it just grew from there. So my studio is it's actually right now in September, it'll be 5 years old.
Congratulations. That sounds like an amazing adventure that you've been on the last 5 years. But we're going to talk about a little different adventure today. I recently saw an Instagram post that one of our mutual friends had shared about you going into prisons to teach piano. And when I saw it, I had so many thoughts and questions, and I was so intrigued that I knew I wanted to ask you to come on the podcast. So thank you for agreeing to come on the podcast. And I would love to hear the backstory and anything you can tell us to kind of catch us up about how this came to be.
Sure. I had actually thought about it for maybe a year and a half before I actually did it. I never thought about prisons, I would say, in general. And then there was someone relatively close to me who spent a year in prison, and that really does raise your awareness, I would say. And it was through that where I got a little bit more exposure. And then it was through the re-entry into real life and seeing the progress that this person had based on a very supportive family and friends, a big networking system, that I just became exposed, I would say, to a need. And I felt a growing passion that I wanted to try and do something. And I didn't necessarily know at first that it would be a piano class, but I had thought about it for a while, and there's different ministries, I would say, that do a lot of things related to the prison. I didn't really know where I fit in that. So what I did was what, any person would do. And I Googled, how could I be involved in a music program in a prison? At that point in my mind, it was just maybe like they already had an established music program that I would go in and help in, whether it was an aide or helping in a class or something. And so through that Google search, I found the closest one near me that would do anything like that took volunteers. And I just emailed the volunteer coordinator volunteer coordinator. So I emailed him and I explained what I was looking to do and asked if there was a spot if they needed anything. Well, they actually used to have a very thriving music program before COVID, and there wasn't a single instrument, a single musical class offered post COVID. So that's also, 4 or 5 years since that. So they haven't had a music program. So he basically told me anything I wanted to do, I could do. And they would happily let me come in and do something musical. So I have sung in choirs. I don't really, my forte is piano. So I didn't feel comfortable starting a choir. I had no idea how to do that, especially with all men's voices. And then, so I just said, could we do a piano class? So what I didn't realize was that at the prison, inmates can buy pianos on what they call commissary. So the list of things that they can buy, there is a tiny little less than 88 keys keyboard that prisoners can buy. So the inmates who signed up for my class all had pianos. So that's kind of a little bit of the backstory of how I got into it. It definitely more, but then here I am just, okay, I have to start this piano class.
Wow. So once the volunteers said it was a go, you're like, okay, I guess I have to do it, right? I would love, could you go back and talk a little more about you said you saw a need with this person who was close to you. Can you talk a little bit more about that gap and what you thought how the piano class could fill a gap like that?
Sure. So we talked about prison life. That's how it kind of came up. We did not get to visit this person that much because, again, everything is kind of relating back to COVID. But it was like a year from February 2020 until January 2021. Not a great time to be in the prison system in our country, definitely in our state as well. So we didn't get a lot of visits. We got Zoom calls every once in a while if it would work. And a lot of times it just didn't work with their Wi-Fi system and everything. So it was after the fact in 2021, 2022, as this person was processing and basically overcoming a lot of the obstacles that they faced in there. It was through that process that I got kind of a front row seat, and I realized that what's missing is some humanity, some beauty, a little bit of lightness. It's so heavy, it's so weighty. There's violence, there's danger and a lot of fear. And I had heard from this person that they loved when there was anyone who came in and did anything. It didn't matter what it was, but somebody came in and led a class on painting or was like, oh, everyone can get they did classes for a GED. So even people who didn't need it would just go to the class because there was just a need for human interaction and something outside of almost like a distraction. So that was where I was thinking I could fill a gap. It would be a little bit of just a lift. It would be a momentary, like a short amount of time where that weight was potentially lighter. So that was my thinking. And I will say my goals morphed as I was in there. So initially, I would say I was really motivated by that aspect of beauty and music and what music brings to someone's life, no matter where they're at.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think it's a shift in perspective for how a lot of us think about the prison system because we think they're like, these really tough guys who wouldn't have any interest in beauty or art or something like that. So I'm glad that you shared that. I would love to get back to some of the logistics of what you had to do before you actually went into the prison. You mentioned that they were able to buy piano keyboards inside the prison. Did you have other gear that you had to take in with you, or can you walk us through some of the things you did do beforehand?
This was a challenge for me because I could not walk in with anything. I couldn't bring my phone, my iPad. I couldn't bring a pen. I couldn't bring paper, a notebook. I walked in with nothing.
Wow. Oh my goodness. We all have our crutches that we always have to have, right?
And I will say I learned a lot about what are my actual crutches. And I had to just do it from nothing. And I am not a type A teacher. If you know type A, type B, my sister is a type A, super organized and has a plan, has extra stuff planned. I am more of the creative. I don't really know what I want to do until I'm in that moment and then I think of it. But in my studio, I do plan ahead and then I deviate from the plan often, but I have all of my resources right there. So I might have one game out. And then as we're going and I'm interacting with my student, I realize, you know what, let me pick this other game that's right here in this file. I'm going to just do this one. That's my style of very go with the flow. And walking into the prison with nothing was very difficult because anything that I wanted to use, I had to send like a week in advance. And I could barely remember what I had planned a week ago. And then I come in, I'm like, oh yeah, we're doing this and that. Well, now I want to do something different. So I had to rein in my ADHD creative brain that likes to just go wherever it wants to go. I really had to rein that in and be like, okay, this is what we're doing. So that those logistics were very hard. I couldn't bring anything in. There was a keyboard there for me. And then we did open, as the class went on, the prison actually purchased pianos that the prisoners could rent. So some of my students were being loaned a piano for the class, which this might kind of deviate from the question, but that's something I am trying to work out in future classes because I realized at the first class, they have this loaner piano, they make progress, but then I have to go to the next class, which is a waiting list of other students. And those students have to turn in their piano and lose kind of the progress that we've made. So that's a little bit of a work in progress where I'm trying to figure the loaner system out. So
some of them have instruments that they've purchased, and so they can keep those all the time. But then other ones, they just have loaners that they turn back in. So they're not able to practice in between. Is that what you're saying?
They can practice in between. So they take it with them. But then the very last class, they turn it back in.
I see. Okay.
So I do another session. There's two sides of the prison, which is a little bit confusing. It's an east and a west. So, and I don't do them simultaneously. I do one at a time. So we're working on simultaneously. We're working on multiple pianos. We're working on some of those logistics for sure, because it's difficult.
Yeah, I believe it. And then are these keyboards that just have built-in speakers? So is that what it is?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what your expectations were before you went in? It sounds like you had maybe been into a prison before, but probably not to the extent that this was. Do you remember how you were feeling or what you were thinking?
Yes, it's so funny because I had kind of like two extremes. First of all, my expectations for the class was it would be this beautiful thing where I would go in and they would just be so overwhelmed by how amazing it is to play the piano. That definitely did not happen. But then also on the other extreme side, I was very, very scared, really just terrified. I haven't done something that has made me terrified like that, like nervous dread. I haven't done something like that in such a long time. I can't even remember the last time. So that was very difficult. I did not expect, because I've been in a prison before. I've been on the visitor side of things. I've never been on the other side where volunteers are sort of treated like staff, that we have an ID badge that we clock in, we do our fingerprint, and then we can just go. So I was not used to the big, like Sally Port doors that take forever to open and nobody can open them, not even the staff. You just wait for them to open. So there were some things, I would say the physical aspect of walking through multiple hallways, multiple doors. Once I got through that, multiple sidewalks, multiple gates that you wait to open. Just the whole process of getting to the piano room, that was scary and something that maybe I was more worried about in the beginning. And then I slowly got used to it. So that was kind of interesting. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect the walk to the piano room to be a little bit of like a heavy weight. I definitely underestimated just the heaviness of being inside a prison. I don't think I factored that into my like class plans, and it was mentally really difficult. So I struggled with that for the first class. So I did a 2-month class on the east side and then a 2-month class on the west side. So my first class was really heavy mentally. And I definitely underestimated that.
Did you go in alone? Were you alone when you went in?
Yes. So nobody could go with me. The first couple of times I had somebody walk with me. So there was someone from some staff member from the program services. He was great, actually. He was the email person, the logistics, the room usage. He kind of gave me all the information. He walked me to and from class multiple weeks. So it wasn't until I was more comfortable that I started walking by myself. But after that, I did walk by myself, and he would only walk me to the classroom. And then I was on my own. Nobody stayed in there with me. Nobody really asked or helped. How's it going? One of the inmates was a worker in that building. So he was super helpful, would copy papers for me, would help me get the piano set up, the chords. I'm not a logistics person. So I was literally like tripping over the chords. So this inmate was like, let's put these behind the pianos, and gave us a nice little classroom space. So I appreciated that help. Yeah, but otherwise pretty much by myself.
Great. Thank you for sharing and being vulnerable about all of those things. And it was an all-male prison, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's different too, as a woman walking into an all-male prison, I would think. I don't know if you want to speak about that at all, but
I will say I had looked for female prisons also. When I did that Google search, it was really just any prison. I didn't realize there's like only a very small number of female prisons in Pennsylvania, and all of them are multiple hours away. So that kind of just, I couldn't do that. Then more local prisons that have both, like county jails, I would say, they don't do this type of volunteer program because it's a shorter amount of time the inmates are in. So that's how I ended up where I'm at. But yes, being an all-male prison was interesting, but they were very respectful the entire time. And I wasn't sure how that would go, but I felt very safe actually in the classroom.
So tell us about that first class. What was it like? What was the response? How'd it go?
The first class, I'll be honest, I viewed a little bit as wash. I walked in, I was still completely scared. I was just nervous. I didn't know how it was going to go. I guess going back to the all-male prison or all-male inmates, students, I'm not used to taking control of a classroom in that setting. And you probably can't tell, but I'm short. I'm 5 feet and like half an inch. So I didn't quite feel capable of controlling a classroom. And you could tell in that first January, February class. So I was very kind. I introduced myself. First thing I did was find out their names, introduced a little bit about me. I explained to them what I wanted to do for the class. And then it sort of just derailed from there. So I realized without headphones, I can't really control when they play the piano. So all of them are playing piano at the same time. And another interesting thing, there's not a lot of, obviously, this is a difficult setting. And the students that I have do not have a lot of control over their own lives. And if they sense that there's any spot that they can control in the classroom, I feel like they would grab onto that. And nothing against them, but I'm up there like not sure what I'm doing. And so then this one is like, oh, I don't want to do this song. Here, let's all do this one. This is a great one. And there was a lot of input and I was struggling to pull it all together. So I was hopping around. I was helping this one learn Mary Had a Little Lamb because he just wanted to play something and he didn't even know where a C was. And then I was helping another one who could do these jazz voicings. We were literally working on in-depth jazz voicings while other people were playing the music I actually handed out.
Yeah.
So it was a little chaotic and I struggled to pull it together each week. Each week I tried and I was not succeeding. And some of it was, I think I had to find my voice. And like I said, I had definitely underestimated my own mental ability to walk in, feel the feelings that I was feeling, and then teach a class and not be intimidated. And I was intimidated. We also ran into some logistics in the first class because I had set the time frame. I just threw out a time frame that I could do. Well, it turns out it's so complicated walking on the sidewalks, as simple as that sounds, but getting from their block to where I was, there's only movement allowed one way at a time. So I wanted to start at 9:30, but 9 o'clock is when they're allowed to come. So if their slip says 9:30, they can't come over. Well, then at like 9:50, anyone who's already here is allowed to walk back and they can't pass each other. So these people are walking back. And then finally, my students were allowed to come and they were getting there at 10. So we had to work through a lot of that. And then we had some absences and then a block was shut down. And then, so I didn't even have a full class every week. And when I tell you we were getting nowhere, we were really getting nowhere. So I thought about quitting. I was feeling a little weighed down by it. I felt like, okay, well, I can't do this. I tried. It's not for me. I'm not able to pull it together. I'm trying. I'll talk to this person. I tried to get one of them to do hands together. They said they will. And I was like, well, okay, let's hear it. No, I'll do it. You walk away and then I'll do it. And I'm like, okay. So I was not in control of the classroom at all. So that was a struggle. That class ended. We were supposed to do a recital. Our goal was the one side, 8 weeks recital, the second side, 8 weeks recital. The recital was more of the superintendent deputy's idea for the class. So it wasn't me necessarily. It was a little bit of like, okay, this volunteer wants to come in and teach a class, but we need there to be a recital and let's see how they do. I told my supervisor, I said, we can't. I was like, we're not going to be ready. I was like, we've done nothing. I was like, nothing to show for the past 5 other than chaos. But it was interesting. I was feeling down about it. I felt a little bit like a failure and I thought about quitting. The person close to me that is kind of like the motivation behind all of this. He was like, just quit. Just don't go back. Don't worry about it. Quit. And there was a part of me that just could not do it. And I think I had a passion and I'm not afraid of challenges. In fact, I like challenges. So in my mind, there's a little bit like, okay, I have to give this one more shot on the other side. And if that one goes as like chaotically and as bad as this side, then I will quit because I cannot do this. Around that time, I actually called Christina Whitlock, Beyond Measure. She does a consulting thing. And she advertised, you're always, anytime piano teacher friend. So I actually just reached out to her. I reached out to Amy Chaplin also. I had them both kind of on a message and I just know them. And I needed a piano teacher friend because I can talk to friends and family, but there's something that feels like no one understands it when you're in there. So I had an hour-long call with her and she kind of validated how difficult this is, what I'm doing, and made me feel a little bit better. Like, it's okay. Let's learn from this. So she helped me pinpoint a few things about that. And it seems simple, but what I did for the second class was I went in with very clear objectives. If I could control the objective and what I was trying to do, I could control the classroom. So I ran the second class completely different, which I know I've been talking a while, so we can get into that in a minute if you want. But I would say the first class was a learning experience. I did make some friends over there. That inmate that I mentioned who helped set up the classroom. The last 2 classes, I was down to 3 students because everyone else had dropped off because it's chaotic. We're not really making progress and there's different reasons. So these 3 students that I had left, they went through and helped me. I sent in a paper about what I was planning to do on the second class. And I just sat down with them and I was like, all right, what do you guys think about that? They gave some input. We talked about songs together. So I built some relationships and those 3 ended up sticking with it. They didn't abandon me and they agreed to come over to the final recital on the other side since their side didn't have a recital and they actually were working on music. So they came over and combined. So that's a lot, but that was kind of the first class.
Okay, so tell us about the second class and tell us what you did, how you structured it, what you taught them, and how it was different.
So I remember the first day I went into the second class and I went in with the mindset that this is either I'm going to sink or swim. This is going to make it or break it. If this goes well, I'll keep doing this. If not, I'm done. And one of the things I had looked up different things about how to just be a leader when maybe it's not your natural bent. I don't mind leading my studio. I don't mind emails. I don't mind sending directions, but actually leading a class, which I've done before, but it felt different in this setting. So I Googled some of that stuff again. And they said, give yourself an alter ego. So the whole drive in, it's about an hour drive in. I was like thinking of a name. That's it that I wanted to have. And I thought maybe Maria, because that just seemed like a bold name. Like if there's an opposite name of Florence, I think it's Maria. So I was thinking of doing that. I ended up not deciding. And so I was like, well, it doesn't matter what name I choose. I just have to go in confidently. And that changed everything. I was confident walking in. I was confident in the class. I feel like I just pulled every strand of chaos until I was just holding it for dear life in my hands. So I did a couple of things. First of all, I talked over them. I didn't let them interrupt me, which I had done in the other one. So I really clearly set my expectations from day one. And I explained that I needed them to practice. I needed them to show up to every class. I explained to them exactly what we were doing in 3 weeks. And then I had a break. I also scheduled in breaks. That was vital for the second class. Actually, missing 2 weeks, I think, made us more productive as a whole, just for my mental.
So breaks like weeks off. Is that what you mean?
Off, yes. So I scheduled 2 weeks off in the second class. So the first 3 weeks, we worked on our ensemble piece. We played Lean on Me. And another thing that really helped was because we're all out loud, no one has headphones. I don't have a fancy system where I can plug in to different people's keyboards. We're all out loud, and I have to somehow control that. The beginning of every class, I required that they played a solo, whatever they practiced. And I was very, very supportive. I told them it doesn't matter if it's one line. If this week you worked really hard and got that one line learned, I just want to hear that line. So we started this routine that definitely helped. So they were used to, we went around the room as soon as they came in. And that helped me kind of control the volume in the class. And somehow that set a tone of, okay, we're done our solo pieces. Then they would look to me, what's next? And then I would do some sort of group instruction, whether it was note reading, whether we did a rhythm activity. Always we would practice our ensemble song together with me yelling out the counts. So we would do our very structured together time. And then the last 15 minutes or so is when I would kind of let it evolve into that chaotic setting that the first class was the entire time. And I said, okay, you can practice, and I'm going to come around and help each of you. So the whole room would be full of different music, but I would focus on one student at a time and help them. So having that routine and structure, again, it sounds simple, and it's something that I'm like, why didn't I do that from the beginning? But I think I needed to adjust, and I needed to get used to the setting. I had tried to have a structure in the beginning, but I didn't insist on it enough. So in the second class, I just insisted on our routine and our structure, and they respected that. And I respected them for what they did. It was through that I discovered clapping is countercultural to them. So I clapped even for like the one line. So if we're doing solo performances and with the idea of a recital, I wanted to kind of get them used to that. And I clapped alone. And then I was like, oh, well, now they know we clap. So then the second one, and I clapped alone again. And I was like picking up on this. So I finally addressed it and said, when someone plays in this room, no matter what happens outside of this room, in this room, we are supporting each other. We're all in this together. I'm in this with you guys. I said, we have a recital. I was like, you guys aren't going to look bad. I'm going to look bad if it doesn't go well. And they kind of like that camaraderie. I encouraged them to clap, and then they grew in that. So I loved one of the times where one of the students who struggled maybe more than the others, so didn't always have something to play, or just it didn't sound like a song. When they finished their recital song, they went from the beginning to the end, and they had completely learned it. We all erupted in clapping and cheering, and it was really uplifting just in the classroom apart from the recital.
Wow, what a special moment. Can you share a little more about the recital and how that went?
I loved the recital. there was so much nervous energy in the room. The week before, we'd had a rehearsal and there was nervous energy there. And someone told me that they wouldn't be able to come to the recital. And so I had said, oh, I was like, please come. I was like, I will miss you. Like, we've worked so hard. I would love to just have you share your music. And I did do a little bit of that type of performance coaching, like we do with our students in our studios. And I said, this is not about how many right or wrong notes you play. This is about you've worked hard on something and you're sharing it with others, and it's bravery. You're sharing, you're being vulnerable, which is not something that they necessarily want to do. So they all showed up. Everyone came, and a few of them were kind of excited to tell me that they were there. So I was very excited for them that they came. We all sat together in the front. There were inmates that had been invited in the back. And then also on the other side was staff. So certain staff members came. So the Reverend who's in charge of the volunteers, he stood up and introduced me. I stood up, talked about our class, talked about some future plans. And then just like a regular recital, we just went through the list. And it was very rewarding for me to see our enthusiasm and the support that had grown in our little classroom spread to some of the inmates and even some of the staff who were there. And you could see them warm up a little bit and start clapping and being supportive. And it was just touching. I think everyone from the staff to the other inmates to myself, seeing each man get up and walk to their piano. We had all the pianos set up. So we had like 11 to 12 stands. We were short ones, so some of us shared. We had a couple stands up there with their piano set up and their music. So when it was their turn, they went to their piano, played their song, we all clapped, and they came down. I played with 3 of them. So at various levels. So there was the jazz voicing student. He did all these chords and I kind of improvised the melody above, and it sounded amazing. It was so fun. And I think it was a really great experience for both of us to kind of do that in front of people in the moment. And then I played the melody to another inmate's song while he did basic chords. And then I played the chords while another inmate did the melody to his song. So everyone picked their own song. I let them choose their song, and then I found a version that fit their level. So, yeah.
I want to talk about the impact on the recital, but real quickly, I have some questions about what you actually taught them, because it sounds like they were at all different levels. So did you teach like some basics to all of them? And then how did you teach all these different levels?
Yes, it was difficult. What I did in the beginning was I made sure everyone knew their key names. So some of them already knew them and I understood that, and that was fine. But I, like that first class, I said, these are the keys. And then we learned Lean on Me, which if you've ever played that, it's just C, C, D, E, F. It's like 5 fingers pretty much. And I actually did just letters. I handed out to everybody, like the melody with the letters. It was notated as well, but the letters were inside the notes. So I had told some of them, if you can read notes, then you don't need the letters. Everyone else needs it. So we did really the first line the first week, and we did it and counted it. I didn't dive into rhythm that fast because I know they all knew the song. So I did count, but I was like, we'll talk about like the rhythm later. So that was what I did at first. The second week, on the whiteboard, I talked about treble clef note names. So the lines, the spaces, C, D, we talked about that. Some were a little bit lost, but that last 15 minutes is where I kind of went over it with the ones that didn't know it as well. So then we went back and did Lean on Me with the letters in. And then I gave them all a sheet that did not have the letters in. And we did it with just the actual notes. So Lean on Me, I feel like I took and I used as my own, like I just kind of the blinders on, we're going to learn music through this melody. We all know. So that was 3 weeks in. The third week, I gave them all a little note worksheet and had that like almost like a quiz. so that they were getting used to it. And they understood too. Like one of them was like, oh, the training wheels are off. We have to know which one. And I was like, yes. That was within 3 weeks. We were kind of doing that. It was very quick. I feel like I would call this 8-week session like a crash course. After that, after our break, we came back and I dived into chords and rhythm. So I told them what a chord was. And a lot of times I kept it a little surface level. I was like, we only did root position. So C chord is C with 2 skips above it. And there we all played chords. That was a heavy technique week that week because not everybody can do that motion. As an older person, you're not used to that. So we did a lot of technique that week, kept drilling some of the notes, and then we would add a line of Lean on Me each time. So they did practice a lot. So that helped it go quicker. And then it was probably the 4th or 5th week that I asked them what they would like to play. I gave them music. Like I said, some of them were really good at the chords, but were not picking up on note reading. So I gave them a chord sheet for the song that they wanted to play. Others could read well, so I literally just gave them music. So yeah, it was really centered around Lean on Me and then just, I don't know, filling in the gaps based on each.
Okay, got it. Do you think that they talked about it and interacted in between the classes with each other? Like, did they ever practice together or anything like that?
They definitely interacted together. Because they would come in and talk about how they talked about it. Or I know there was 2 members of my class that were definitely probably too advanced for the class that I was doing. So they were farther along. They could have had private individual lessons. What I appreciated was they were quick to help other inmates as well. So I know that they helped other students outside of class time. So they would come in and be like, oh, I helped him do the chords like we were talking about. And I was like, okay, great. So yeah, I think they did to some degree. And it depends on who they were and if they shared a block or if they were in a block by themselves. So,
and I imagine it gave a little more meaning to their week in between the classes too, having something to practice and something to do during that in between time.
Yes, something that they're preparing for. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little about what the impact was on these men that you saw and maybe on the people who heard their recital as well?
Yes, I think obviously this is me just kind of reading or viewing it. I can't speak for them, but I know that they told me they appreciated it. Several of them told the deputy who was there that they wanted more classes like this. I think there's something we take for granted our recitals. I take for granted my recitals. I forget how alive sharing music makes us. So I think when maybe the impact, the benefit is having something that it's not just the drudgery and it's the arts. It's that transcendental experience, I think, that takes you above your mundane life. And that can be true for me as well. I feel like I had the same impact through this experience in that this was a little bit special. This was something different that we could all participate in together and then also all feel that impact of how powerful music is. I think it has such an effect on people's souls, emotions, minds, outlooks. And I seeing some of that, I feel like I could see based on the feedback and just what I observed, the lift that gave some of them. I have to be careful not to share too much about this, but there was a few that were on death row that were in my class, and that's difficult. And I think the impact too was they were coming to this class and they didn't have to, and it was a way to keep living and keep appreciating beauty and the good things in life. I think, even in dark situations. So I think the impact for them was similar to the impact for me as well.
Wow, that's really powerful and impactful. Tell us a little more about how it changed you as a person and as a piano teacher.
I definitely saw a change in myself. I feel like I had a little bit more of an understanding of what's really important, if that makes sense. it does affect your view on daily life. So certain priorities, certain things that maybe are more important than others, like people, number one. So I felt that like people are my career. It's music, but it's also people and doing life together. And I feel like there was a composer, was it Chopin, I think? I read a quote somewhere that said something like, when you play the piano and there's expression and music, you're not painting always a scene like trees and rivers and mountains, although I know we do that sometimes with our music. You are painting a human experience. So humans are feeling something when you are playing. That's what we're like. An artist paints scenes, and we are painting just the general human experience of so many emotions and feelings, even like the awe of seeing mountains and trees and lakes. So I think that became clearer to me. I got a clearer vision of what's important and what I'm doing. I think it helped to, it just raises your empathy for just life. So I felt a little bit more sympathetic to my students in my studio, my students at the prison, my students at the college, my friends, my family. So I feel like it affected me as a person in my priorities and just my view of life, and also what's really important, and gratefulness for what I do. I love being a musician. I'm so thankful for this field.
Yeah. Will you be going back and doing more of these classes?
Yes. Yes, I will. We have our plans in the work for our next one, which will not be a recital one. It will just be a theory technique sort of. But I want to dive deeper into note reading instead of just note reading as a tool to play this song. So I'm going to do note reading, theory, and technique for in the summer.
Great. Will you be working with some of the same men, or will it be a new batch?
It will be some of the same and some new.
Okay, gotcha. If a teacher is listening today and they're feeling inspired to maybe do something similar, where would they start? What do you recommend?
I would recommend, number one, finding out more about your state prison system. So wherever you're located, just Google maybe volunteers in your the prisons in your state. So when I put in volunteer prison, it comes up Pennsylvania because that's where I'm located. So I would look that up. It will give you lots of options of volunteer like programs that are already in place. But if you want to do something specific musically, I would say click through and find where it has a volunteer coordinator. It was only about 2 pages in where it was like, first, no matter what you wanted to do, there was like a list of things you could do. And then the next page was contact this volunteer coordinator for whatever you want to do. So I would say that's how you get started. You have to talk to someone in there, and then they can plug you in.
So when you said there was a list of things you could do, so it said like music classes on there?
It did not say music.
Okay.
So not the option. So I requested that.
Gotcha. So don't be deterred if it doesn't say music class, right?
Exactly. Still at.
Well, Florence, I have been mesmerized listening to you tell your story, and I really, really appreciate you taking time to share with all of us. And it's so inspiring, and I just loved hearing about what you've done and the incredible impact that you've had on these men's lives. So thank you for being here. If teachers want to reach out and maybe learn more about you or follow what you do, or if they have questions for you, is there a place where they can find you?
Sure. I'm on Instagram, Florence Phillips Music. That's where I'm most active, but that will be sent over to Facebook as well. I have a Facebook that it feeds into. My website is florencephillipsmusic.com as well. So that we have some new updates coming out just in the next week or two. So the website or Instagram would be probably the best way to reach me.
Thank you so much, Florence. I have loved talking today, and I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate how honest Florence was about the struggles she faced when she first started teaching in the prison system. The fact that she persevered through her own self-doubt and kept going when she wanted to quit is a testament to her dedication and determination. One thing I've noticed about piano teachers is that most of you also have a streak of determination. It is not easy to learn to play the piano, and it's not always easy to teach piano. And I think that most pianists have a tenacity within us that not everyone has. Another thing I loved about Florence's story is that she went to her piano teacher friends when she was ready to quit, and they encouraged her and shifted her perspective. If you are still looking for your piano teacher friends, we are here for you. One of the best parts, I think, of the Top Music membership is the community that it gives to teachers. There are power hours where you can meet with other teachers and a private Facebook group that you can be part of. I encourage you to find your piano teacher people, whether it's here at Top Music or maybe in your local community. That's the end of the show for this week. Next week on the podcast, Celeste Watson will be joining me to talk about her journey with a piano-related injury and how she has worked through that. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Rachel Ehring, and this is the Top Music Piano Podcast. I'll speak with you again next week.
How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today.